Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Invest Her's June webinar. We're so excited for you to be here and share so that we can share this very important financial planning topic with you. Today, Melissa is going to talk about your money relationship and why it might be so complicated and how you can improve that relationship. I'm Sarah Hansen, and I'm a financial planning associate at Invest Her. And before we dive in, we're just going to introduce ourselves for anyone watching who might not know who we are. So, this is the presentation. We're going to go over your money relationship status. It's complicated by me and Melissa. And a little bit about me. Like I said, I'm a financial planning associate with Invest Her Fiduciary Solutions. I've switched careers from the digital marketing industry. I'm currently a graduate student in financial planning at the University of Georgia, and I'm going to graduate in December. And I have a strong passion to help as many people as I can with their financial planning goals and just life goals in general. And right now, I'm currently in charge of the budgeting and cash flow management services at Invest Her. And I also help Melissa create personalized financial plans for the firm. So I'll give it to Melissa so you can introduce yourself and take it away with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. For those of you that don't know who I am, Melissa George. I have been in the financial services industry for 28 years, and I've owned Investor Fiduciary Solutions for 19 of those years. We really specialize in holistic, comprehensive financial planning. We do that uphold fiduciary standard, which is the best interest standard, always doing what's in the best interest of our clients. And through the years, right now, I am also matriculating at the University of Georgia in the Behavioral Finance and Financial Therapy graduate certificate program, which I'm very excited about. Hence, why we're this particular topic today on behavioral finance mindset. So that's enough about me. I'm ready to kind of get into the presentation. So Sarah, let's advance. Okay, so what we really want to talk about today is about our money beliefs. A lot of times when people are working with a financial advisor, a lot of advisors and planners, they're talking about what you should be doing or, how we can tweak what you've currently done. But a lot of them don't really unpack the why behind your money behaviors. Why did you make these specific decisions that you did? And a lot of this is unconscious. And so what we want to talk about today is how emotions, messaging, and your subconscious beliefs impact your financial decisions. We're going to talk a lot about money scripts and how those money values shape your financial behaviors. We're going to talk about healthy money behaviors versus extreme money disorders. I want to differentiate between the different types of professionals that you can work with behaviors or to treat disorders, and really learn the importance of identifying what your dominant money script is and triggers to help you improve your money choices. We're going to talk about the KMSI assessment. If you don't know what that is, you will know by the end of this particular presentation. And you'll have access to, you'll be able to gain access to an assessment, a free assessment. Okay, so understanding money behavior really, really is important, more specifically for women, because, we generally are the people in our household that make the major financial decisions, especially large ticket items. It's usually the female or the woman in the house that's doing that. But very often, we are really influenced by our emotions, our upbringing, and societal norms. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So really understanding why you make certain money choices, whether it's, the undersaving, whether it's emotional spending, whether it's avoiding investing. It really can help you gain clarity and gain confidence around intentional financial decisions as you move forward. Okay, so I wanted to give you a couple of stats. 80% of women will be solely responsible for their finances at some point in their lives. A lot of times people really think about if people are single, such as myself, it is very likely that I'm going to be a single retiree. But even if people are married, because generally speaking, women live longer. So if you and your spouse are about the same age, or if your spouse is older, more than likely you will outlive your spouse and you will end up as a single retiree as well. Only 33% of women feel confident about their ability to plan for retirement compared to 52% of men. So we definitely need to get that number up. And women are more likely than men to experience financial stress, especially related to caregiving. Very often we are caring for three generations. We're caring for the generation above us, our elderly, our aging parents. We're caring for our generation, and then we're also caring for the generation behind us, raising our children, and sometimes the grandchildren as well. And then, of course, debt and emergency savings are also large concerns of ours. So, we already know that women face longer life expectancies. However, we often retire with less financial resources as compared to men. Gender roles and caregiving responsibilities also can lead to uninterrupted income and lower lifetime savings, particularly when women in the workforce for a number of years, maybe a decade or more. And then cultural messaging can really discourage assertiveness around financial planning and investing. So I wanted to give you some examples of what I mean by cultural messaging. Some of these may be phrases that you're familiar with or have heard before. One is talking about money is impolite. So women are often socialized to avoid these types of financial discussions, right? So it reinforces silencing and especially in areas where we probably really need to speak up. For example, negotiating salaries when we're taking on a new job, asking financial questions, especially in a maybe in an open gathering, or openly discussing our wealth goals. A man will take care of the finances. Um, I think that this is definitely a changing trend, but there was a time when that was really the norm, where a man would take care of the finances. So this is really an outdated belief now. But for women that still ascribe to this, it leaves them very vulnerable when they become divorced, widowed, or single, especially if they've left everything up to their spouse and now the spouse is gone. And this is something that they maybe have not done in 10, 20 years, right? Good women are selfless and giving, right? So this is what really leads us to emotional overspending. We're putting our family first, we're doing for others, we're putting our needs last. And then women aren't good with numbers or investing. So that is definitely a stereotype. It really discourages women from very good at investing. So, why is this important? Your mindset, right? So, women, we often internalize these messages. And so, it really does affect the types of money behaviors that we have going forward, like under saving, not asking for raises, avoiding financial planning, feeling guilt around spending on ourselves. So, once we recognize these messages, the first step is we really can rewrite our own narrative, which can really help us build healthier, more empowered relationships with money. So, what are money scripts? Many of you may have not heard of money scripts. I think you're going to start hearing more about them as time goes forward. But money scripts were developed by Dr. Brad Klontz. He's a clinical psychologist and certified financial planner. He co-authored this concept with his father, Dr. Ted Klontz, and together they really pioneered research at the intersection of psychology and financial behavior. What's really interesting about this is, and again, I've been in this industry for 28 years now that psychology and financial planning, financial services are intersecting, it's really enlightening because I think it's really important for people to understand the psychology behind their money behavior. But what money scripts are is really our unconscious beliefs that we hold about money, and they're often developed in childhood. It's kind of where it starts. So they guide how we think, feel, behave. Sometimes they help us and sometimes they hold us back. But it's really interesting to really have people think about their money story. What are your first memories about money? How did your family handle money? Did your family talk about money, or was that something that was never talked about? Those kinds of things. And then as we get older, what did we observe about money? A lot of unconscious behavior, things that we saw with our parents, our grandparents, our friends. A lot of these are things that really affected us in terms of our own money scripts. So, what is the KMSI? The KMSI is the Klontz Money Script Inventory. It's an assessment tool that really helps us identify what our dominant money script is. And what I mean by dominant is you might see there are really four categories of money scripts, but you may see traits that you have in more than one. And so the assessment really helps you key in on what your dominant script is, right? So each of us has strengths and blind spots. So awareness is key. So once we understand what our dominant money script is, it really can give us some insight into our financial behavior, and it can also empower change, like we talked about rewriting our script.
Mm.
So I want to go through the four categories of money scripts. And the first one is money avoidance. And so very often the belief is that money is bad. I don't deserve money. Wealthy people are greedy. And again, each one of these money scripts has some pros and cons. And I'm just kind of giving you the highlights of all of these. We could go much deeper, but the pros are that people tend to value people over possessions. That's a good one. That's a pro. They're often very generous and community minded, and they're less likely to be driven by materialism. So those are the pros of money avoidance. The cons are very often these people will sabotage their own financial success and they'll avoid wealth. They avoid budgeting, investing, dealing with money issues. Very often, they may just take the statements and they put them in the drawer. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to look at the bills, which would be more of an extreme money avoidance. But this is one of the four money scripts. So the next one is money worship. So people that believe that the more money I have will solve all my problems. I'll be happier if I have more money. I'm sure people are familiar with having those kinds of feelings sometimes. So these are people that are very motivated to earn and grow their money. They can be very goal oriented with wealth aspirations. They also feel enough both over time and over relationships, and they're often dissatisfied no matter how much money or whatever level of income that they have. Money status. These are people that feel like their worth is tied to what they earn or what they own. So these are people that are highly driven. They're very achievement focused, often entrepreneurial or advancement oriented. Excuse the typo there on oriented. And entrepreneurial is misspelled as well, but you understand what I'm saying. But very often these would be business owners, maybe small business owners. But the cons are they're usually very vulnerable to financial insecurity and debt. They acquire a lot of debt to maintain their appearances. They equate success with external validation and lifestyle. They avoid discussing financial struggles due to shame. So this may be someone that on the outside looks very well put together. They have the house, they have the car, they're doing their vacations. There might not be anything in the house. So the car may be leased or rented. So again, there are extremes. There's a spectrum to all of these, but this is the money status script. And the last one is money vigilance. So the belief for someone who's money vigilant is that you must save, you must be frugal, and to stay private about money. So these are usually people that are excellent at savings and budgeting. They're very risk aware. They're very careful with debt. They value financial security and independence. However, they may have trouble enjoying the money or spending money on joy. They're prone to secrecy or discomfort discussing finances, and they can experience anxiety or hoarding. Hoarding people can hoard money as well. They have a fear of financial risk even when it's secure. So again, there's spectrums to all of these. What I think is interesting about these, I think there was a time when I was much younger, when I finally was of the age where I started making money. I was definitely a spender, so I was somewhere in that money status was probably my dominant script at that time. But as I've gotten older, I am very money vigilant now. Not an extreme money vigilant. I actually don't have issues talking about money, but that's probably by profession because I'm talking about money all the time. But I am very risk aware and careful with debt. Doesn't mean I don't have any debt, but I try to keep it under control. Um, I don't hoard money. I have no problem spending money on joy, but a lot of people that are money vigilant, it's hard for them to spend money on themselves. So it's interesting. And hopefully you've seen maybe some of your own traits in some of these different money scripts as we've gone forward. Okay, so now I want to switch from talking about behaviors to money disorders. Okay, so this is when your money scripts become rigid, deeply ingrained, and interfere with daily life or relationships. They can evolve into money disorders. So these are your maladaptive financial behaviors that persist despite negative consequences. So these are what we really call the extreme cases, and these are usually situations where people need beyond financial therapy. They really need the care of a psychiatrist, psychologist, someone in that arena. Um, and so the extreme cases of these money scripts can help. They can manifest as diagnosable or clinically significant money disorders. And so we're going to talk about the differences between the different types of financial therapy and behavioral finance literature as we move forward. Okay, so for a money avoidance extreme behavior will be, again, someone that ignores their bills. They avoid looking at the bank accounts. They don't want to look. They don't look at their financial statements. Like I said earlier, they're probably someone that takes all of the bills and things and they stick them in their drawer and they don't even want to look at them. They may allow debt or taxes to go unpaid to avoid the stress of confronting money. But then, of course, it creates a different type of stress when there's, a tax lien or something of that sort. But they also reject financial help even when needed. They have feelings of unworthiness, of security or success. And so, and again, that's on the money avoidance. So a money disorder would be financial denial. So this is someone that is really just pretending that the money problems don't even exist, right? This leads to chronic financial instability. It leads to shame and guilt. It also leads to increased risk of bankruptcy. So this often happens with people that have extreme money avoidance behavior. Then there's also financial rejection, feeling guilty or anxious when receiving or holding wealth. So sometimes they sabotage their own financial success. And so the root of that is shame or low self worth or belief that wealth is morally wrong. And again, that's all under the money avoidance script. Under money worship, the extreme behavior would be someone that shops constantly to alleviate stress. Lots of retail therapy, right? It creates a fleeting sense of happiness initially, and then you have the endorphins going off and all of that. But it often leads to accumulating debt, right? So they believe that money can buy love, can buy security, can buy self worth. But the disorder would be compulsive buying disorder, which is a real thing when you just have uncontrollable spending, regardless of need or budget. This often reminds me of when Oprah still had her show on. She did a show where this woman had this little box and it was just full of credit cards. I mean, the woman had like 60 credit cards. They're all like, charged to the hilt. That compulsive buying disorder. Gambling is a extreme money disorder, compulsively chasing the thrill of winning, the fantasy that a financial windfall is going to solve all of my problems. And then workaholism, which is something that most people don't really think about, but someone who is working excessively, they're sacrificing their health and their relationships or their well-being in the pursuit of financial gain. And so the emotional root of this is chronic dissatisfaction, have a scarcity mindset, and sometimes that scarcity mindset goes on throughout life, even when there is scarcity does not exist. And then also emotional voids filled by money, trying to fill the emotional voids with things, right? So the money status extreme behavior. This is someone who borrows or accumulates debt to protect their success. Again, this is all about appearances. They want to have this luxury lifestyle, but they usually don't have any savings. So they really prioritize appearances over their financial health. And there also becomes a lot of enabling. It could be enabling of a child or a partner to maintain the illusion of status, right? And so the disorder is that there could be an overspending disorder, again, spending to appear wealthy rather than just, meeting your needs, and financial enabling. So this is really where you're supporting others financially to feel valuable or avoid shame, but at your own detriment.
Mhm.
So the emotional root of this is fear of judgment, need for approval, fragile self-image. I also wanted to mention that, really there's a strong social media context to this right here as well, because when we think about social media, we think about the things that we see, right? Everything that we see is not really what it is, right? Don't
Right.
get me wrong. There are people that are wealthy and have, amassed wealth, and they have the cars and the boats and the yachts and all those kinds of things. But there's also a lot that we see that isn't real. And so what happens is, we always we're having these images of, oh, I need to keep up with this person. We talk about keeping up with the Joneses. I want to live like that. And so I, put myself into debt in order to have the illusion that I have all those things, right? That would be a extreme disorder.
Hmm.
Okay, and the last one is money vigilance. And again, I am money vigilant, not extreme, but the money vigilant person is refuses to spend money even on basic needs or experiences. They hoard cash. They fear banks. They keep large amounts of money hidden or uninvested, which is can be detrimental because money that is uninvested can't keep up with inflation for one. And we already know that the cost of goods and services are increasing over time, right? They avoid any financial risk, even if it when it leads to loss of opportunity or inflation erosion. So again, if they can't keep up with the cost of goods and services, basically you have someone that can be going broke very slowly over time because their money is not keeping up with inflation or taxes for that matter. Um, the money disorder, hoarding disorder, so obsessive saving without clear purpose. And then the financial hoarding and hyper frugality, extreme aversion to spending or generosity, even when secure. And the emotional root is fear of vulnerability, control issues, anxiety around uncertainty. I want to give you all an example. I had a young lady reached out to me maybe about a month ago. And literally, the first thing that she said to me is she said, I have an unhealthy relationship with money, right? And this is what we're talking about, our relationship with money. And as I asked her to tell me a little bit more, again, tell me a little bit about her, tell me more about her money story, tell me about how she grew up. She was Chinese. Her parents were Chinese immigrants. Had come to this country, when probably before she was born, or when she was very, very little. And so they came with very little. And so she really, what she observed unconsciously was watching her parents just kind of grind it out, trying to, make a living. And so this woman now, she's educated. She has a fantastic job at a government institution, which I won't name. But she is so afraid to spend money. One of the things that she said to me is she said, I toil with, purchasing a steak versus eating meat out of a can.
Mm. Mm.
Has money, but her money script, again, she's having a little bit of some extreme, she's kind of on the far end of the spectrum with money vigilance to the point where she's afraid. She would rather get meat out of a can versus buying a steak or salmon or whatever the case may be. So again, you can start to see how it does get very complicated, especially when the behavior is extreme.
Yeah.
So once you have kind of identified what your dominant money script is, what's important about it is understanding what your financial triggers are, right? So money scripts do reveal emotional patterns behind your money behavior. So an example is if you're a money avoider, the trigger might be checking your bank account because it can cause anxiety or shame, right? If you lean towards money worship, your trigger might be comparisons to others in your sphere. Like I mentioned before, social media, which may lead you to overspend or to feel better. Sometimes that even happens in small groups when we're with our friends. We have friends that are, we're all at different levels of income or disposable income. And we have a friend that has the capability to spend more. Um,
Mhm.
like we need to keep up, but we know that, man, if I buy at the same level as my friend, I'm going to regret it later
Yeah.
because they're going to be tight, right? So, identifying your script does help you spot your triggers in real time so you can pause, reflect, and you can choose a different response, right? And so the result is you're going to gain awareness of what sets off your spending, avoidance, or control patterns, and you can interrupt them. I can even say that for myself. A lot of women talk about emotional eating, right?
Mhm.
They're something has triggered them. They tend to go to the kitchen, they go to the refrigerator, they go get the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. But there's another group that will go spending. So that retail therapy. So being very cognizant of knowing that that's my emotional trigger. Like you said, when I can stop and take a pause and say, okay, I know that what I'm feeling right now, this is a moment, right? It's a moment in time. It's going to pass. For me to not go out here and do something that I'm going to regret later on because I'm feeling a certain kind of way now. So that's one of the things that's great about understanding what your financial trigger is. Okay, so again, what is this all about? This really, in the end, is all about how do we make better money decisions. So again, once we recognize what the belief is beneath our behavior, then we can challenge it, right? What do I really need right now? Is it connection? Is it security? Is it purpose? So this shift is going to lead to us having more intentional budgeting. We're going to have healthier spending habits, and it also is going to create better financial boundaries in relationships. That is one that's very, very important. I don't know really of anyone that doesn't at some time or another have to deal with, do I loan money or not? Do I borrow money or not from friends and family, right? And
Mhm.
that's things that can often change the relationship in a significant way, right? Um, so we want to make sure that we do have healthy boundaries for lending money as well as for borrowing money, right? So again, the result here is that our decisions can become values driven and not emotionally reactive.
Right.
So shifting our harmful behaviors, our behaviors do follow our beliefs. So we need to understand what it is that we believe, what we believe, right? When we expose the belief, we can also replace the behavior. So, in the example of a money status believer, they may learn to disconnect self worth from outward success and stop overspending for approval, right? So, that really is kind of a being more cognizant of what my worth is so that my worth is not tied to the things that I have or what I do for a living. And that often happens, especially for people that have worked at a place for a very, very long time. Um, they have this attachment to what they do, and that gain a lot of their what they feel is important about themselves from the job that they do, from the work that they do. But that's not always the case. Even that might be as simple as having a specific budget, right? That I can, this is the amount of money that I am allowing myself to spend on joy. Maybe that's a massage, maybe it's a vacation, maybe it's a steak dinner,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like. Replacing self-sabotaging habits with constructive behaviors that are going to support our long-term well-being is really the key. So we want to build healthier, values-aligned habits. So
Mhm.
knowing our money script is going to help us clarify what truly matters to us, not what society or our family member told us should matter. This is about what we're telling ourselves about what matters. So, one of the questions that we can always ask ourselves is, does this align with my goals, my values, and the kind of life I want to create? Right? This also may mean saying no to people pleasing, saying no to guilt driven spending, and saying yes to boundaries, savings goals, and meaningful purchases, right? One of the things that I do, which it's just like a little game that I play with myself. Let's say I'm going shopping. Most women like to shop, contrary to what people believe. Some women don't, but most women like to shop. If I'm going to shop, the game that I play with myself is it has to match at least two things that's already in my closet.
Mhm.
It cannot be a one off, right? Because if it's a one off, that means I buy the dress, it matches nothing. Now I have to go buy shoes. I got to buy a handbag. It's more things that I have to buy, right? So it has to match at least two things in my closet. There was a woman that I used to work with, and her rule that she had for herself is if I bring something into the house, something has to go out,
Yeah.
right? So that's a good one as well. So now we're not continuing to pile up things. We always gonna have the same amount of things, but maybe now this was one that I can donate, or maybe this is one that I'm just gonna get rid of because now I have something new that's coming into the house, right?
Mhm.
But here's the result of this: your financial life starts to feel more empowered, more joyful, and more aligned with whatever your core values are, and not just numbers on a spreadsheet. So, I want to talk about the path to recovery, and this is just specifically for people that have really unhealthy money, not the behaviors so much as the disorders. I want to kind of really delineate the differences between the two. So it's important that people understand the roles of the different types of professionals. So a lot of times people talk about psychologists and they talk about psychiatrists, right? And a lot of things at times I think people don't really understand what the difference is between these two. So your psychologist is a trained mental health professional. They specialize in diagnosing and treating emotional, cognitive, and behavioral disorders. However, the one main thing is a psychologist cannot prescribe medication. That's probably one of the significant differences. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor who can diagnose mental health conditions and can prescribe medication. So again, in a situation where someone has a unhealthy money disorder, they may end up seeking the services of a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But if at some point it is recommended that they're going to need a medication, they would have to see a psychiatrist for that.
Okay.
Just about to click to advance, and I realize I'm not clicking today. Okay, so the path to recovery. Most of you are probably not familiar with the Certified Financial Therapist designation, CFT. This is someone who is trained at the intersection of financial emotional awareness and behavioral change. So this professional can help clients understand and transform their money beliefs, their scripts, and their behaviors through an integrated goal-based approach. Now, this is actually what I am working on attaining as we speak, and it started with this graduate program that I'm in, and so hopefully in 2026 I will attain the CFT. But this is for individuals who are financially functional, but maybe you're stuck in some of your sabotaging habits. So again, we're not talking about disorders. We're just talking about maybe some unhealthy money behaviors. So those who are experiencing guilt, shame, anxiety, or avoidance around money, or clients who are looking to create value-based budgets, Sarah budgets, and relationship with money, could really seek out the services of a CFT. Okay, so how do they work together in addition to working with a financial advisor or planner? So let me tell you what's important about this. So you have these three professionals here. You have the CFT, you have the psychologist, you have the psychiatrist, and I'm giving you what their focus is on. So with the CFT, their focus is really on behavioral change tools. What are things that you can work on with a client to help them make better financial decisions, better money decisions. So this is for clients again who are struggling with their money scripts. They have avoidant behavior, they're overspending, or they're having shame around their relationship with money. A CFT would be someone that they could seek out their support. A psychologist is really working on therapeutic interventions. Again, this is for clients with trauma, anxiety, deep behavioral patterns impacting their money. or the psychiatrist who is really there for medical management, and they're dealing really with those clinical disorders like bipolar, OCD, depression, and those things that can also affect finances. One of the things that I wanted to kind of point out, because at the end of the, we're all talking about money, but we're talking about behaviors that affect money, is there cannot be you cannot be working with a financial planner or advisor who is also a CFT, who is also, they can't be managing your money and treating you for money behaviors at the same time. So it's important that you may end up having two of these people. So, for example, if I'm helping somebody with their money and I'm seeing that they're struggling with money behaviors, I would have to refer them to somebody else. I could not treat them for the same thing. It's important because you have a lot of people in the space that have dual designations. They're a certified financial planner and they are a psychologist, or they're a psychiatrist. They're both. So they can't treat both. It has to be one or the other. So I just think that's important for people to know. Next slide. Okay. How do you discover what your dominant money script is? This is, to me, one of the most exciting things about it. So if you really want to uncover your beliefs, what your money script is, you can take the Klontz Money Script Inventory, the KMSI. How do you do that? You actually can send an email to info@investherfs.com. And in the subject line, put request KMSI assessment, and we will send it to you, right? As a bonus, though, sometimes people take the assessment and they want to just spend a little bit of time unpacking what the assessment revealed to them, right? And so as a bonus, you can also receive a free 30-minute Zoom session to unpack your results, explore how your script is showing up in your financial behavior, and start designing a new money story. Again, that is a free 30-minute session. There's no obligation to do anything further, but very often I find that people want to kind of talk through a little bit to see if maybe they are a candidate for working with the CFT or getting some financial therapy. So that's something that we will provide to anyone that is watching and is interested in finding out what their dominant money script is. Okay, we have come to the end. I don't know if we have anybody watching, but if there are questions, there's many, many ways to reach out to Sarah and I. You can email us. We have our website is listed here. Our calendar link is listed here as well. So you can definitely go on the calendar. You can book an appointment with Sarah or myself. We always provide a 30-minute consultation to anyone. So that is available. We have my LinkedIn page. Sarah, we probably should put your LinkedIn page up here as well, but they can get to you from there. The company LinkedIn page, our Instagram page, and our Facebook page. So I hope that you all learned something from the information that we provided today. I hope it helps you improve your money relationship, because we know that it can be complicated. And we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right.